Hi folks, so I wanted to take a little bit of time today just to introduce you to the module. This module is game mechanics, and in it we're going to look at kind of some of the deeper underlying systems of games that make them compelling and engaging. The module builds on a lot of what you've covered in game design 1 and 2 so far, and then it really tries to focus on this idea of like building systems that interact with one another and making sure they're kind of intelligent systems that work well together. Today we're going to go through a couple of things in this video. So we're going to go through some housekeeping, which is stuff I'm sure you're aware of, but I just want to remind you of. Going to go through the module structure, so talk about how the module is structured in terms of the formal elements and the academic requirements. Go through the indicative structure, which is week by week what's covered in the module, and then lastly, going to run through the module approach, the kind of things that are important as to how we approach this module and the sort of things we'll be thinking about. So, as always, ask questions, discuss points. Like, I want to ideally see you discussing the stuff in the Discord and having good discussions about it and kind of having a back and forth about what is important and what is relevant about this topic. Take notes, so if you blog or you tweet or you do Instagram or TikTok or whatever way you communicate about games, like I think it's important to in some way document what you're doing and you're not just coming to class each week and then you finish class and you just forget about class altogether. Okay, so try and reflect on what you've done each week. The other thing is, like most modules, you get back what you put in, so the more you participate, the more you'll find this hopefully engaging. I suppose one caveat is to say that this module is kind of more so will be slightly more so up the street for people who are interested in strategy games and games focused on more so long-term rewards and systems engagement than, let's say, Twitch reflex type games. The other thing is all deadlines are final. So there is a test in this module, which you see in a while, and a project, and there'll just be a deadline for those. And if you don't get it in, you don't get a grade. And my email address, as always, is john.p.ely. Please don't forget the .p or else it goes to someone else, and I often don't get it. So to go through the module structure. This module is 5 credits, so similar to game design, or I think pretty much all your modules this semester actually are 5 credits. So this, production, game design, programming, digital storytelling, and there's something else I'm forgetting, but they're all basically 5 credits this semester. I think it's ethics I'm forgetting. And then you've got 2 hours contact time with me and 6 hours self-directed time per week. So basically 1/6 of the time you're working on college stuff, you should be working on this module. So it's not a big module, but it's a good chance to kind of understand what's involved in systems design and kind of see if it's an area you're interested in. In terms of learning outcomes, at the end of the module, you should be able to demonstrate an understanding of how various mechanic systems are used across the different genres. You need to be able to demonstrate an understanding of strategic thought, choice, and probability. You need to design a balanced system. You need to demonstrate a theoretical and practical understanding of emergence and progression mechanics. And you need to demonstrate an understanding of complex systems and economies. And I suppose one key thing is to know that a lot of those things are interrelated, so to be able to design a balanced system, there needs to be some element of like kind of complexity and the economy behind it and strategic thought and choice and probability. A lot of that stuff often will play into kind of a balanced system. So some of these are kind of interrelated basically. As I mentioned, in terms of assessment, you're going to have a test. So you're going to have a 1 week game design test focused on modeling a game economy. Okay, so the idea is that you're going to take a game that's out there and you're going to kind of model out an aspect of that economy, and you're going to hopefully do kind of deep dive so that you really demonstrate you understand how that economy is working and what's going into it, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, what are the sort of resources within it. And then the second assessment is a project, which is worth 60% of the module. And this is going to be tied into your game design 2 systemic game. So you're going to complete the design of a game system from concept to detailed design. So within this module, you'll be focusing very much on sort of paperwork and the sort of systems design. So using Excel, using tools like Machinations, which we're doing in a few weeks, which let us model out game systems, as opposed to it's not so much about like we're not going to be jumping into Unity or Game Engine or anything like that. Instead, we're focused on designing these systems. So I suppose one thing is like hopefully you're coming to this module because you want to be, and like ideally I would say it's important that each of you thinks of this as kind of something that you're volunteering for and that you're supporting others in the class and you're encouraging them to kind of do their best and answer questions and help people out. Then indicative structure. So the module is broken down into 3 different units. So it's broken down into like 3 4-week chunks. So the first one is an introduction to game systems, and we're going to kind of cover the groundwork there, stuff like terminology and kind of basics of systems. Then we're going to go into Unit 2, which is really about designing game systems, which is sort of meat of the module. And then Unit 3, which is iterating on game systems. And that's how we kind of really take on board feedback and improve our systems and work on them. So the first unit is the intro to game systems, and that's weeks 1 to 4. This week, you have this module intro, and there'll be another video on game economies. So it's quite short. And then you're going to also, for an exercise this week, you're going to play a game called The Quiet Year, which is a game that's going to encourage you kind of to build up a game economy. And that's kind of like an interesting sort of quite straightforward game, but it requires you to build up an economy basically. Week 2, we're going to look at systems terminology. So we're going to look at like all the different language we use around systems and how we describe that. And we're going to probably jump into either Excel or machinations that week. We'll see kind of how we're getting on for time as to which topic we jump into. Week 3, we're going to look at numeric relationships in games. So looking at how different numbers interact with one another and some of the maths behind game systems. And week 4, we're going to like focus on kind of the core concepts. What are these elements that we're going to be using going forward to help us design systems? And then from week 4, you're going to be assigned a game design test, and you're going to have a week to work on that and submit it. Okay, so you're going to have like a clear test and requirements and submissions, and you submit them a week later, basically. Unit 2 then is all about designing game systems. So we're going to start off thinking about how we create smart systems. Okay, and these are systems that are kind of, the way they're working is clever. We're minimizing the number of variables within the system, while still keeping it kind of smart and intelligent and clever. And then week 6, we're going to look at designing fun systems. So even though our systems might be smart, they're maybe not yet fun at that stage. And that week, you're going to be assigned a system design project. So I'll be giving you the brief with the details of that. Week 7, we're going to be designing for player agency and really thinking like, our systems might be smart and they might be fun, but how do we make sure there's enough stuff for the player to do and the player can impact the world? Week 8, we're going to do a case study with a game designer who's going to come in and talk about some of their work on different systems that they've worked on over their career. I think that'd be a useful chance to kind of think about some of the topics we've talked about and see how it's maybe applied across a career within working on kind of strategy-based games. And then Unit 3 is iterating game systems. So this is weeks 9 to 12. So you're going to have, Unit 3. The lecture that week, we're going to talk a little bit about game feel and system design, and that's really how those two interact. So game feel is very much the micro, it's the moment to moment, and the system design is the macro. It's like that kind of things that keep you coming back week on week. After week 9 then, we're going to have spring break. So you're going to have 2 weeks off. So that'll give you some time to keep working on your system design. Week 10, we're going to talk a lot about playtesting and kind of, being very thorough with our playtesting and getting a lot of valuable information out of it. We're going to, week 11, focus on iterating on systems. So how we tweak systems, how we change them, how the feedback we get from playtesting and other sources feeds into iterating on systems, and how we gather data on those systems to help us improve those going forward so that we end up in an iterative cycle. And then week 12, we're going to summarize the module and have the conclusion. And then you're going to have another week or 2 basically to submit after that. So the module approach, I suppose, is the last kind of key thing to go through on these slides. It's, I suppose, a key thing is that like we're talking a lot about like stuff like loot and drops and kind of resources and thinking about character progressions and skills. So it's important to bring your own knowledge, whether that's strategy games or RPGs or even first-person shooters now are heavily kind of influenced by system design. So hopefully everyone pretty much coming to the module has some experience with like understand these systems and plays through them and like enjoys that aspect of playing with systems and tweaking them and kind of trying to optimize them. There is going to be some maths involved in the module, but it's not going to be like super heavy maths. Like we're not going to be doing matrices or anything like that. Like it's going to be kind of maths that's slightly heavy, but it's fairly understandable. And there's some fairly straightforward formulas we'll use again and again. Things like when we're calculating XP curves and stuff like that, we can use very simple formulas that allow us to extrapolate out a range of levels that hopefully allow us to create kind of compelling player experience. And I suppose the last thing is like just to know that this will kind of tax your brain or your like sort of intellectual faculties a little bit. So it is a module that maybe focuses more so on doing paper design work and trying to think very deeply about the topics we're talking about so that you're coming up with the best outputs and systems and things like that. So ideally you're coming to class fresh and prepared and ready to kind of engage with the sort of content we're talking about. And lastly then for this week and probably next week, I don't think I'll be able to make the live classes because I mentioned my wife is currently in hospital, and it's kind of I'm trying to juggle childcare and stuff like that. So instead, post questions on Discord, and I'll post videos for the kind of class content each week, and I'll keep the Brightspace up to date so that you know kind of what's required. But if there's any questions or anyone's uncertain of what's going on, then you can post questions in the Discord, or if there's any questions about the module, feel free to post those there as well. Great, thanks folks.